Hey everybody, it's Amy from Magic and Light Collection. You can find all of our products at www.magicandlightcollection.com. So I thought that it might be interesting for you guys to see a full edit from start to finish. I have not touched this image ever before, and so I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I do know that I'm going to match it to the rest of the images, the editing style for the rest of the images from this shoot. And for the rest of them I used Rainy Day and a little honey tone from the Vintage Spring Action set, and also a little bit of Magic Light. And so I just thought it would be interesting for you to see what goes through my head when I'm starting an edit that I haven't touched before. So this is a little image from, I think, my favorite photo shoot over this past weekend of my daughter at a farm. And it was so much fun, and the images came out really well. So, and let me just tell you guys that I do shoot in RAW, and that's why you will notice that a lot of my images are gray and a little underexposed looking. That's a RAW image, and that's going to be the best format for you to shoot in if you're a professional, which you may or may not be, but you'll definitely be editing your images in Photoshop or some other photo editing program. And so RAW is going to be the best format for you. I'm also working today in Photoshop CS6. If you have Photoshop Elements, a lot of the techniques are going to be the same, and if something varies, then I will definitely let you know through the process. So let's get started. So I'm going to start by just taking a look at the image and seeing what is going on. And I'm going to take my cue for editing from the image itself. You can see here my husband's foot. We did have to chase my daughter around quite a bit to try to get these images, and so I'm going to need to remove that. I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicate background layer by right-clicking and clicking Duplicate Layer. Okay. And I'm going to use the Clone Stamp tool to go ahead and remove his foot from the image. And I'm going to need to go pretty small with the tool. Now, the way you use the Clone Stamp tool is to hold down the Alt key on a PC. I have no idea what it is on a Mac. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, sample by clicking, and then pull it over and click to stamp the image. So you can see that that created that. I'm going to sample again right here and click to remove it. So here I'll sample again, and you want to just be sampling regularly to be sure that everything is fairly accurate. I'm just going to go a little bit faster here. Oops, sample again. It's not, let me go a little bit bigger with this one. It's not perfect, but for my purposes, I know that I'm going to be adding a special effect that will minimize this problem. Oops, go back and make my line straight. Anytime you have these lines, it can be much trickier, and I'm really not a professional clone stamper. I tend to get a little bit messy with that. It's just a little too tedious. Okay, so now you can see that his foot and leg are removed from the image. This is where we started with the foot. This is after we removed the foot. So now that's perfect. I'm going to go ahead and flatten my image. Now I want to go ahead and run Rainy Day from the Vintage Spring action set. So just pull down your set and find it. Elements users, you will double click on your thumbnail for Rainy Day. So here we are, all in one Rainy Day. Press play. We'll just let it run through and see what happens. Okay, that's a little crazy. So let's go through and see what is causing these problems. My first guess is going to be earth. That's usually a little bit rough on the skin tones. I'm also going to take off sharper image for now because I'm going to sharpen this image later on. Warm it up is probably fine. Bleach is fine. Okay, so contrast, you can see, is a little bit heavy. I'm going to go ahead and leave contrast totally off on this. So then we have these layers: dark brush, light brush, blush brush. We can choose to make it vintage with this vintage haze or not. And I think what I'm going to do right now is check Rainy Day, the tone. So I love what it does to the grass. I love what it does to the truck. I think that's great. I like what it does to her outfit. I don't like what it does to her skin. So I'm going to click on the layer mask, choose a black brush, and I'm probably going to do start around 70% and just take it off because it's really not working for the skin tones. And you know, sometimes it may work. Actually, let me go back. It may work for your skin tones sometimes, and it might not. Let me just, I think I actually might leave it. Might just take it off tiny bit here on the edge. And you can see that that really kind of desaturates her skin by taking it off. But that's okay. I like what this is doing. So let's take a look at the before I ran Rainy Day. Before. You can see that the cyan levels are very high. This is after. Much warmer, much more contrast in the image. Before, after. Now I'm going to flatten the image. Okay to discard the hidden layers. So I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of Dreamcatcher, which is a set that I have coming up, and there are going to be a combination of actions and overlays with this because I feel like you guys get the most out of actions and overlays together. And I'm going to go ahead and open Dreamcatcher. There'll be quite a bit more, but right now this is what I have in my action window. I'm going to play Lighten Skin Tones. You can use your light brush for this from Vintage Spring. In this case, I'm going to use Dreamcatcher so that I can just give you guys a sneak peek. The black layer mask, I'm going to choose a white brush on a lowish opacity, probably somewhere around 26%, because her skin is really dark. And I'm going to be careful as I'm lightening not to overspill into any areas that don't need to be lightened. I promise you, if you're not careful and you do overspill and create a halo effect around the subject, it will show up in your print images and it's not pretty. This has happened to me several times, and so it's important to really be careful when you're doing this. Just get a little more light here. And you can see where I brushed off that Rainy Day on her face. It's really, that skin tone is really desaturated. Just a little bit more. Alright, let's just check it a little bit more here. Okay, let's just check and see. That's the before, and that is after lightening her skin tones. And I feel like I almost need to lighten her hair a little bit because it's just not matching with her face. Okay, let's check the before and after. Considerably lighter. I'll go back in and add a little bit more warmth in her face later on. Okay, that looks good to me. Now I'm going to go ahead and flatten the image again, because I'll need to run another action that can only be run on a flattened background layer. So the next thing I'm going to do is run Dreamy Contrast from Dreamcatcher. So you can see that that gives us a nice softness to the image, but also a good contrast. I definitely love it on the truck, and I don't think I love it on the grass, and I don't think I love it on her body. So let's just mask some of that out. I'm going to use a black brush, and I'm going to start at a low opacity. Right now it's set to 26%, and I'm going to brush it off the grass. Need to brighten things up just a little. So now I hit it twice, and that means it's at a little over 50% that I took off. Let's just double check where else I don't like it. So I think here on her face, and this Dreamy Contrast can cause a little bit of reddening in skin tones. It may work for your image that you're working on, it may not. Just brush it off if it doesn't. Go a little bit higher to get some of this off. Oops, let me go back. You can see that if I hadn't caught that, I would have had that halo effect. So I'm going to zoom in here. You can see if I was printing this image, this is what would come out. These really harsh lines. And actually, I probably need to lower the hardness of my brush to something like 10%. We'll do that. That way things can just blend. Oops. Things can really blend a little bit better. We have a little extra red color cast going on here too from the truck and the outfit. Now if you overspill when you're doing this and need to go back, then definitely you can switch to a black brush and do it that way. Let me just click it off, click it back on. Okay, I need to take some more off of her face right here. Okay, so I actually have made a big mistake when I did the last move, and you can see that there are some harsh lines here. Look here, where I didn't get the effect off enough because the hardness of my brush was too much. I would have to go all the way back right now, but I think what I'm going to do later is use 5 o'clock shadow to blend these, and that's from the Vintage Spring action set, because that's going to be a problem when I go to print this image. So let's just scroll up and see there's another area right here where I messed up, here, all around here. And that's a lesson on making sure that you zoom in and really do it properly. Let's zoom out, see what it looks like. Her face, again, is a problem because I took off too much of that rainy day tone. But for the sake of the tutorial, we'll just keep moving. And just zoom out a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and flatten. Next, I think I'd like to go back to Vintage Spring and run the Tones of Spring Honey. So you can see that that gives it a nice honey tone. Again, it's not great in the skin. You can see really kind of blows out the highlights and also brings in just a little bit too much yellow. So I'm going to brush that off. Now at this point I have to really redo this image completely, and so I'm just going to be quick about this so that I can be sure that I'm showing you. So that's honey before and after, and I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna actually brush that off of her hair because that looks a little weird. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to flatten again. I'm going to go back down to Dreamcatcher and I'm going to run this. It's called Dream Glow right now, but I'm going to call it Luminosity, and press play. And so you can see that when I did that, watch the highlights. It gives the highlights a nice glow, and that's something that would be a really good tool for pinup or any kind of vintage photos, because it'll give it that soft, glowy feeling. That looks pretty good to me. It's going to come to you on 75%. You can adjust it up or down depending on the needs of your image, and I think I might like it at 81%. Okay, I'm going to flatten again. Okay, now I'm going to go to the Magic Light Action Pack, which you can also find on the website. And one that I haven't showed you guys, a lot of you have purchased this set, but I think this is really, really a neat tool, is Midnight. So I'm going to choose Midnight and press play. And you can see layer mask comes up. I'm going to choose a white brush there. And I think I'm going to do a very high opacity. My goal here is to black out all of this background and just let the truck stand out on its own. Just gonna, and it needs to really kind of be a gradual effect as it comes down, as though the light, the darkness is falling from above the image. Just get in here. Okay, so I'm going to choose a okay, so I think now I'm going to go to a much lower opacity and brush in the darkness. Really kind of want it to be gradual here. I'm just gonna hit this with a big brush. Okay, I think that looks pretty cool. And I'm gonna go down actually to 20-ish and hit this so that it's just blended. I could spend hours trying to be perfect, but this is where I'm at. So before midnight, here we are. Lots of distracting stuff in the background here. And after midnight, it's a very dramatic difference. I'm going to go ahead and flatten. And let me think, if I wanted to add a vintage haze on here, I could do deep vintage. Kind of brings out my background a little bit. So lower the opacity on that. And let's see. I think that's probably the only one that I would use. Turn it down a little bit more. Okay, so you can see before the vintage haze. I'm going to flatten it. And now the last step that I would do is to quiet the noise in the image and also go ahead and sharpen the image. So if you want to quiet, you just go to workflow, quiet, press play. I'm just going to go ahead and sharpen because this video is getting kind of long. Alright, so you can see that it sharpens the truck and her, and it's way too much sharpening. So I'm going to turn the whole thing down because I want that kind of soft vintage look. Let's check. It's a little bit of sharpening here. The other thing I could do is just sharpen the truck a little bit more, and then brush off some of that sharpness by choosing a black brush. Probably gonna just take about 40-ish% off, especially off of her outfit and her skin. Okay, so there you have it. Let's check the before. Okay, so this is where we started, and that's where we started, and that's where we ended. Now, of course, I'm going to have to redo this image, fix the skin tones because they're totally desaturated. I'm going to have to make sure that my brush is set properly to the to brush off the rainy days so I don't have those harsh lines within the image. And but otherwise, I think this is really cute, and I hope that you found this tutorial helpful. You can find all of our products at www.magicandlightcollection.com.